Okay, recorder launch, recording a call.
Hey, Rich, how's it going?
Good, Garrett, how are you?
I am fantastic. It's a lovely, lovely day.
Is it as hot as Egypt?
It it sure felt that way. Hello,
Except we're in...
everyone, and welcome to Films from the Basement. Now, originally, when Films from the Basement was created, it was exactly how it sounds in the fact that I was watching films in a basement. But I kind of changed it up a little bit for this format, and the fact that the films that we will be watching are the kind of films that would be located in a basement, or, as you might think, bottom shelf, low tier, quote-unquote, bad movies. Some of those things might be from Asylum. They could be Sci-Fi Channel originals, movies from the bargain bin, Amazon warehouse, Mill Creek 50 packs. I think we get the picture. I'm Garrett. I will be your host slash weird bad movie guy, and I'm joined by my good buddy Rich from Just the Slips podcast. Say hi, Rich.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
How are you today, Garrett?
I'm doing good.
Excellent.
And we both like bad movies. Different kinds of bad movies, but we both like bad movies. Would you say that's accurate?
Oh, I would say that's pretty accurate. I have a love-hate, and even when I hate them, I can't always not look away.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of one of those, once you get started, unless it's like really, really terrible, I almost have to see it through just to find out what's going to happen.
Oh, for sure. Sometimes, and it all depends if they're intentionally bad or they're trying to be serious and play it straight, and it's just bad because of that.
Yeah, there are... I think a lot of people don't realize that there are many different flavors of bad film.
Oh, sure. I could give a film a 3 or 4 for a score and still enjoy it.
Yeah. I could give a film a 1 for a score and still enjoy it.
Well, I don't know if I would watch any of those, but we'll see.
So, what we're going to do is we're going to... Well, we've already watched this, but what our plan is to watch specific movies that are either considered bad or unknown or from a really small studio, and we're going to watch it, and then we're going to make a podcast, Rich and I, and we're going to talk about the movie and about the things that are in it and what we thought about it. And it's not going to be a very long podcast. It's going to be something that's brief that you can listen to and get all the information and be educated about it. All the different flavors of badness.
And then you can either live along with us, or you can use the knowledge we gave you and stay far away.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it might be one of those things where you weren't interested in the movie before, but you hear the little things that we talk about, and now suddenly you're interested in it. So it could be a movie discovery thing as well for other people that like bad movies.
Especially when you have some with decent casts, like the first movie we have.
Yes. Yeah, let's get into that right away then. What we saw was Sands of Oblivion. And this movie, interestingly enough, is on Blu-ray, which I think some of the ones we're going to do, there's a majority of them are probably going to be on Blu-ray, so they're not like underground VHS necessarily supposed to be bad quality films. This was a movie from 2007.
Well, and I think a lot of people... Yeah, and I think a lot of people would be surprised that this did make it to Blu-ray, but it actually was a production from Stars, which is the Weinstein brothers, so they're going to try to make as much money out of the films they produce as they can, so they're going to get it out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Anchor Bay is known for releasing quite a few like horror films. That they used to be a lot more popular than they are now.
Yeah. Well, now Lionsgate bought them, so we'll see what even happens with all that stuff.
Right. And this, I tell you what, the cover art for this movie is fucking badass. At least on the Blu-ray. If you look it up on IMDb and you see the poster for it, it looks like a shitty, terrible made-for-TV movie, which it is a made-for-TV movie. It's a Sci-Fi Network original. But the cover art on the Blu-ray, I mean, it's like
similar, but crops the torso.
Yeah, and it's like it's shrouded in shadow, and there's this mystic Egyptian background, and it has these heavy like lens flares, and then the amulet in his chest is glowing. I mean, it looks like a really fun 80s B movie, but it's not. It's from 2007. And
But it still kind of was a fun B movie.
Yeah.
Overall.
The tagline is "Some secrets should never be unearthed." And on the back, from Dread Central, they say, one of the most unique story ideas for any movie the Sci-Fi Channel has ever produced.
Which, take it how you want it.
Right.
Because that could mean different things to different people.
Yes. There's so many, like asterisks in that statement.
Oh. Well, and to be fair, too, this was, like you said, 2007, so Sci-Fi has put out, a ton more movies since then.
Right.
But this was still in their mid-2000s, kind of early days, finding everything.
Yeah, and this was, like, after they dropped Mystery Science Theater because they didn't want them making fun of the movies that they were going to be pushing as original content. So there's actually, Rich had mentioned this earlier, about the cast. There are some really notable names in this cast. Was there anybody particular that you thought was kind of surprising that they had a role in this movie? Or?
Well, I kind of snuck a peek at the cast list before I, viewed it, but I did. Richard Kind surprised me because I always know who he is until I see his name. But when he pops up on the screen, I'm like, hey, it's that guy from what is the Michael J. Fox TV, Spin City?
Yeah.
That's it. And he's been in everything. Like you said, he has like 200 IMDb credits.
Yeah.
So
and
he was always a nice surprise.
Tons of voiceover work and everything.
Yeah, and same thing for Dan Castellaneta. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were both in the early part of the film, but they were both surprising. Where you go, hey, what are these guys doing here?
Yeah, it is very much so a lot of like cameo for very recognizable people. You're like, oh yeah, that guy.
Well, and do you think they were banking on the funny thing is this movie actually might do better now since the internet and the Firefly fanaticism has actually, I would say, gained and grown stronger. Mm-hmm. I mean, so this was 5 years removed from Firefly, and you had Marina Baccarin and what's his name?
Adam Baldwin.
I forget. Oh, Adam Baldwin. And you had them, and they're both two of the central figures. And I think if this movie came out now, people would be clamoring to see it.
I do. I kind of am surprised that they didn't use their faces on the cover of the Blu-ray, because I think that would have really sold this in stores.
Yeah. Well, like I said, the Blu-ray came out 2009. As much as the internet's still around there, it's not the social media craze that it is now. I mean, now you go on Reddit, you hear about Firefly every 2 seconds, whether you want to or not.
Right.
But back then... But, yeah, I was surprised with some of the casting.
And they even had an Academy Award winner, George Kennedy, who was in, like, just about every 80s and 90s movie, it seemed like.
Yeah, The Naked Guns. I remember him from Death Ship. Mm-hmm. One of the horrors I enjoyed.
Yeah, he was in Dirty Dozen, Cool Hand Luke. He was in a couple disaster movies, Airport, which, later some parts of that was spoofed in Airplane. Earthquake, he was in Charade, he was in Creepshow 2. Just a lot of different ones. We have Jennifer Aniston's father, John Aniston. He's been in soap operas since the 70s. He plays a pivotal role in the film. The guy who directed this, David Flores, is the same guy who did Boa vs. Python, which I don't know if you've ever watched that.
I have not.
That is completely crazy. And then he did Lake Placid 2.
I haven't seen that, but I've actually heard a lot of good things about that one.
So he's kind of, for Sci-Fi Channel anyway, he's kind of one of their more notable directors. And one of the writers because I think it had at least 2 writers and maybe more. Kevin Van Hook. He's a visual effects artist in Hollywood, and some of his credits, he did episodes of Hercules: The Legendary Journeys, Hansel and Gretel, the sci-fi version, Hellraiser: Hellseeker, Daredevil, iRobot, Law and Order episodes. So he's done quite a bit. You don't see a lot of that quality work in this film. But
well, in my most notable crew member, as I was watching, did you notice who edited the film?
no.
It's actually not even on IMDb, but on the opening credits, it says edited by M.O. User.
Okay, yeah, I do remember that.
So I wonder whose like pen name that was, and they're like, "Oh crap, I gotta work on this movie." It was like, I better make something up. I mean, come on, that can't be somebody's real name, M.O. User.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not on IMDb, so who knows?
That's crazy. Yeah, it does make you. Maybe somebody famous. It's probably Joss Whedon.
So.
Okay.
And the movie wasn't edited bad, I don't think either. So.
No, and that's the other thing. It's lighthearted jabs. I mean, just as a little bit of an overview, I wasn't necessarily offended by this movie. It was slow in certain parts, but there was kind of a core of something interesting and fun there.
Oh yeah, well, and it's funny, it actually plays out like a standard kind of adventure movie.
Yeah.
They're gonna go here, they're gonna find this, and like it wasn't as, I mean, it wasn't a great plot by any means, but the staples were there, so you can't totally bash it for being too out there.
No, I literally think if you were to give this movie like $20 to $30 million in budget and get some decent sets built, it would be a cult classic.
Oh yeah.
It's a lot of it had to do with the fact they had to film basically everything on location, and they had no budget, and it was just filled with dialogue and kind of the basement bargain CGI effects.
Yeah, the CGI is. In some of them, they look almost like a cartoon drawing before you see people like walk in front of them.
Yeah, I guess let's just go ahead and start talking about the film. And that's really how it opens. Is this almost video game animation of CGI Egypt as the background?
Yep.
And they're like guys in costumes, which the costuming was actually fairly decent.
Yeah, and they had a more racial diverse cast than Gods of Egypt did.
Yeah.
there is a whole sort of cavalcade of different races and colors of people, so I think they represented Egypt a lot better.
Yeah, and it's like they like had shaved heads, just like Egyptians were, and they had like the actual like nice face paint where they had like the Eye of Ra and the symbols. It's like they kind of went out in like a college stage production way of going out, but it's like they actually put some effort into at least the costuming and the makeup in the first part of the film.
Yeah.
And apparently, whoever it is that they worship or they're trying to do something with can create sand tornadoes that is like never used in the film again.
Well, it was weird because I think that was before they put his body in the statue. Mm-hmm. They're just out in the middle of the desert, and they're doing some kind of magical spell and ritual, and they bring this giant statue because they're facing the demon. I forget his name, but he's the left hand of Seth,
right,
that brings plague and destruction. And so basically what I think they're doing is putting his spirit in the Anubis-like statue that we see.
And honestly, and this I don't know if this is a fault or not, like Egyptian lore, like Stargate and things like that, I eat that up. I love that stuff. I don't know why, because it's mythological, but it's just that some of that stuff is so interesting, and I just like if they could have spent a little bit more time setting that up, I think I would have been in love with the beginning of the film.
Oh yeah.
But
well, in part that's kind of where if you read online, it seems like they had different versions of the film where people were saying that the beginning parts were told more in flashbacks and didn't even come to like the 3/4 mark. And so this was a totally different version than what a lot was screened around the world.
You know, I have to 100% agree with you there. And one of the notes that I actually wrote down was that there are 3 different introduction scenes in the first 9 minutes.
Yes.
And that would make so much sense that there was like some type of an editing issue or creative issue where they decided to switch it around, or maybe the test audiences didn't like the beginning or whatever. Something did seem a little off, like it didn't necessarily fit. So yeah, I can see that.
Goddamn MO user. He was on a power trip.
He probably works for DC.
Well, and it's funny, that might be one of these things where they had a regular editor, and then the Weinsteins came in and didn't like it, and so they got their own guy to, come in, and then maybe the original guy didn't want his name on it. We've seen stuff like that before, where it gets changed, and he's like, nope, don't even want to be attached to it.
And I could also see this being like a pilot for a TV series that didn't get picked up, and it was reworked into a film.
Oh, yeah, that could be, too. So, and how about in the beginning, after they're gonna sacrifice this one guy, and he's going rogue, and he's fighting back against the little army that brought him there, and instead of shooting him with the arrows, they wait until he gets in the tornado and shoots the tornado with the arrows.
Right. That was crazy.
So, yeah, and then we see. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say there's some decisions like that where it's obvious. It's like maybe the people went to film school, or they're still figuring stuff out. It's not that mature storytelling device. It's just like, oh, what would be cool to do now, and then they do that. So.
Yeah. Well, and this is the part where they basically bury the Anubis-like creature, and there's an amulet that protects and holds him prisoner. And they bury it under the sand, and then we transport to 1923, and somehow it's not buried anymore. Like, how did they get it from Egypt to California, and the creature not wake up at that whole point?
Yeah, that was a pretty big plot issue. I was thinking about that as well, and I was kind of confused. It's like, well, they're not still in Egypt because it says that they're in California.
Yeah.
But how did the guy get here and not wake up and all this other? Yeah. So it's one of those, if you're paying attention to what's going on with the story that they give you, it's a little disjointed, and a lot of the stuff doesn't make sense with what they've established.
Now this is the part where I like the idea, because what they actually are is this is 1923 with Cecil DeMille, and they're on the set of the 10 Commandments, and they brought over all these Egyptian structures, and they had this creature basically run rampant on the set, which I thought was kind of a cool idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I would have loved to have seen an entire movie on that.
Yeah. Could have been the prequel. Well, yeah, I mean, how did they capture the creature? I mean, they do talk back about it in, where they say there were deaths on the set that went unreported and things like that. But this is, and after reading about how it was more of a flashback, I think maybe it even worked better as a flashback instead of, like you said, having the 3 different intros in the first 9 minutes of the film.
Yeah, because it's like, okay, well, which of these characters am I pulling for? Okay, I want this guy to win. Okay, well, you're never going to come back to that guy. Okay, well, this one in 1923. Oh, that guy, I really like him. Oh, I hope to see more of him. He's never shown again. So it's kind of like they want you to just keep holding off and holding off and holding off, and then when the main guy is introduced, I'm like, I don't really like that guy. But speaking of the 1923 on the movie set, one guy gets killed by being impaled on an obelisk. That was a fantastic death. Oh yeah,
and they showed it quite a bit too.
Yeah.
Pan the camera around, and that's actually right where we get our credit scene. That's where it starts.
Yeah. But then after all that fun and the setting up of everything, then it flashes forward into present day, where the little kid that buried this stuff, now he's all old and has a walker.
Oh. Oh, you cut out there for a second.
Oh, okay. Am I
You
back
there?
now?
Oh yeah, now I can hear you. Yeah, you cut out whatever you last said on my end.
Okay, sorry about that. It's basically that it flashed forward to present day, and the kid that had buried everything as a time capsule, now he's all old and has a walker, and he's looking for the stuff.
Well, that's after we meet. Well, they do kind of go back to 1923, or they stay there for a little bit and go through the tearing down of the set.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's probably because of all the deaths and stuff that had happened, they decided rather than taking the lumber and everything back with us to even use towards helping people with like homes and stuff, we're just gonna tear it all down and bury it so that no one finds out what's going on.
Because they trapped the creature in it's kind of a jail underneath the sand.
Yeah.
And that's where you see, like you said, the little kid ends up burying the amulet in his time capsule. And then we kind of go to present day.
Right. and the main character at this point is an Iraqi war vet, and then the old man George Kennedy, and they decide to go digging for his stuff.
And they make sure to tell you that he's an Iraqi war vet. They bring it up at least 20 times.
He should have had like a big tattoo or something, right?
They reference it. Oh, yeah, I killed guys in the sand. Oh, I did this in the sand. Oh, I was over in Iraq. Hey, you were in Iraq? Yeah, I was over in Iraq. Did a 2-year tour. He did a lot in his 2 years because he knows everything.
Yeah, and it's like that. It's not just that that's the basis of his character, or like that's what they're setting up with his character. That literally is his entire character.
Yep.
There's nothing else about this guy that makes him a human other than the fact that then he was in Iraq and what he did there. Which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. Well, and I was trying to do the math in my head, whether, like, how old George Kennedy's character was supposed to be. You know, you go 1923, and he was, probably like 10 there, and then they're back to present day, which is even 2008. So he's supposed to be like 95. He moves pretty good for a 95-year-old.
Right?
So I don't know if they should have said the movie took place, maybe 10 years earlier or whatever. But, one of those little things I was just thinking about as watching it.
Yeah. I mean, and that was the funny thing, too, is like they kept referencing like his great-grandfather. So it was like, kind of the main people they should have been following was the older people because they kept referencing them. It's sort of like once George Kennedy dies, they don't even really mention him again.
Yeah.
And the guy doesn't go to his funeral, he decides to help them out.
Well, yeah, not even that. As soon as she's like, "Oh, your grandfather died." Well, hold on, we're probably getting a little ahead. They actually there's an archaeological team actually looking for the old set of the Ten Commandments, and they're digging in the desert. And then the grandfather goes and he decides he wants to help them out because he knew where he buried his time capsule. In the middle of this giant, miles long desert. They find it in one day?
Yeah. And the other funny thing is, this is headline news on CNN. The fact that they're digging out in the desert, and that's how one of the characters finds out about what's going on, Adam Baldwin. It's because it's leading the news, and it's I have never heard of anything like that getting such big news coverage.
Well, I think too because they said it's only going to be there in a week because they're going to put a river through there or a dam or something. I don't know how that works with the desert, but whatever.
Yeah. There's a lot of convenient, none of this makes any sense parts of the story.
Yeah, and but that's where we see Marina there, and she's the lead archaeologist, and she's heading a team of interns to do the dig, and it's a pretty small team, and they don't have much equipment, so I'm not sure how they were really planning to do all this once they, found it, but.
Well, one of the quotes, I think they even mentioned, well, you have 2 weeks to finish this in, and she's like, oh, I wasn't even thinking about that, or something. It's are you kidding me?
Yeah, let's take all these 18, 19-year-old interns and make them, haul everything by hand. But so basically, yeah, when George Kennedy and Mark there, they find his time capsule, and right underneath the time capsule is basically the creature's prison. And once he pulls the amulet out of the ground, the creature wakes up and like eats his arm off.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, and then they yank him up, and poor George Kennedy dies, and that's him. The rest of him for the film.
Yeah, well, didn't they say like he had a heart, like his heart couldn't take it or something? It's
Yeah.
like, eating somebody's arm, yes, that's terrible, but that's not going to kill you.
So, remember, he is 95 here.
Right, so that might make a big difference. He knew it was going downhill. And at this point of the film, I think we're about 25 minutes in, just to give everybody an indication of how long it took to get to the point to where they finally found the amulet and the creature on the cover of the Blu-ray is woken up in present time.
Yeah. And then basically after he dies, and Mark goes and helps the dig team because something's off and he needs to find out what's going on, and he kind of forgets about his grandfather. And then he starts hitting on Marina, who flirts right back with him, even though his grandfather just died.
Well, yeah, and there's like tons of butt shots.
Oh yeah.
It's just hilarious. It's like everyone's like looking at everybody.
So, and then they start the actual excavation on the set piece, and that's where the weird and strange things start to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, is this the part where the guy is in the machinery, like the heavy machinery, trying to move it? I couldn't remember like exactly when that took place.
Yeah, I mean,
was he the first one that actually killed somebody other than George Kennedy?
Yes. Yep. They're just opening up the entrance and cleaning up, and then he's in the giant bulldozer. Yeah.
And at first I thought they were going to say like he was imagining it or whatever, but there is literally from the floorboard an ocean of scorpions climbing up his leg, and his immediate reaction is, what?
Then he just starts hitting buttons and levers and
just like starts taking off
everything he can.
He doesn't try to get out of the thing, or he's not like screaming about there being scorpions. He's literally just like surprised, mildly that there are scorpions, and then trying to knock them off.
And then we get our second death of the movie.
Yes,
in
the
present
best.
Day. Basically, the bulldozer decapitates one of the port interns.
It was a great decapitation, and his head is left in the scoop too.
Oh yeah. And we feel bad for him because just 5 minutes prior, he's like the only male intern, and all the females were flocking around him and flirting with him and all that. And you're like, oh man, this guy's gonna get lucky somewhere in this movie. Nope, dead.
Virgin sacrifice.
So, and then we get the cops, which come in at various points in the movie, and he always threatens to shut down their operation, and then never really does. He always just says, okay, be more careful.
Yeah, people have been dying on your set, like, quite often. Well, be more careful.
Yeah, try not to let it happen again. That'd be nice. And then we get a couple more intern deaths, and they're quick and really don't matter.
Yeah, it was kind of like after that beheading, I thought it was going to escalate in the deaths, and it's kind of like that was the top of the deaths.
Yeah.
Because after this, once they get killed, they kind of get absorbed back into the sand.
Yeah, they get hit, and he's covering his tracks. He's a smart demon, monster, god, whatever you want to be. So, but then this is when he reveals himself to everybody. We get Adam Baldwin, Mark, and Morena. They're exploring the actual set. They got into it, and they're seeing and they realize they're actual Egyptian artifacts that were brought in. And then the monster begins. He appears and starts chokeslamming everybody.
Yeah, when they start to read the hieroglyphics and they understand it's mixed up and what they have to do, then he's like, you can't do that.
Well, and it's funny, when the monster, like, I thought he was much bigger. He looks very short to me. Like,
Yeah.
You expected this big, giant, imposing presence, and some of the shots, the angles they get him do show that, but when it's just a straight-on shot, he's not very tall, and it kind of takes away from, like, the imposing nature.
Yeah, it was too much of, like, seeing him completely well lit, too. There was no, like, mystery, which is what I like the cover, because everything was almost in shadow, and you couldn't really see, like, his proportions or like, what was going on, but it's like, when they show him in the film, you can see, like, the puppeteering of how his, like, mouth is moving and how it's just over the guy's head and just pushed out a little bit. And, like you said, the short stature of the guy actually playing him. I think if they would have filmed it a little more artfully, he would have been way more interesting as a villain.
Yeah. And then once they realize what they're up to, they realize it's a prison, and then they want to start moving the set to Santa Monica, because they only got the week left to get it out before the river comes through, or whatever that part of the story was. So they get the crews on it and start doing all that in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm. I literally thought that's how it was going to end, was that the river was going to sweep him away. And then they don't even, after they kind of get the stuff out and move along with the plot, they don't even mention the river part again.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is where we see the monster. He can start possessing people and make them do things. But then he possessed the one young intern, and then, like, all he did was take her back behind a trailer and kill her.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't even make her do anything.
And it had a cool effect of, like, where she instantly got, like, a tattoo.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought, well, that'll be a cool way for the audience to know, like, who's on the side of the villain, but maybe the character doesn't know, and so we'll be like, oh my goodness, don't do that, because they're leading you down the wrong path. But like you said, he doesn't even use that ability, he just kills her instantaneously.
And even when he does call her, like, it starts bleeding again. Remember, it bleeds through her shirt, and that's how you knew he was calling her. And then, it just leaves her behind a trailer and eats her as a sand snake.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It was like, there was some interesting... There's an interesting structure to the film, but they, like, at every turn when they made a decision about it, it was the wrong decision for the film.
Yeah. And then this is where we go, and I wrote down in my notes, well, this is convenient, where I keep calling her Marina, Alice. Alice and Mark go to the curator of the Cecil DeMille collection, which she worked there for a couple summers miraculously and knew even where the hidden key was.
Yeah. It's like, suddenly, like, she completely changed professions and knew way more about it than what her character did previously.
Yeah. I was like, oh, this is awful convenient. But then that's also where we meet Nigel Barrington, your favorite buddy.
Oh, yeah, the Jennifer Aniston's dad.
Yeah. And he's supposed to be the same age as George Kennedy, so he's supposed to be 95. He looks like he's in his 60s or 70s, jumping around, running around.
Yeah.
Because he was a young boy when all this happened, too. He was on the set. So.
Yeah, he even mentioned, like, they were friends, like, on set and everything.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and him in real life, even now, in 2016, he was born in 33. So when they were supposed to be born in 1915,
right,
approximately, or whatever, so that's 20 years difference. I mean, not that, you want some 95-year-old guy running around the sets in, movies, but I don't know what they could have done different. Maybe at least made him look a little older.
You know what I just thought of? When do copyrights run out? Is it 80 years?
75, I think, yeah.
I bet that's the reason why they could use the name of the film and the director, because the copyright at that point had run out and they couldn't do anybody newer.
Yeah.
Because they would have had to have paid for it.
Oh, sure. Oh, probably. But I'm just saying, they could have, like, made him look a little older. Like, he looks like, he looks like a 70-year-old guy in good shape. I mean, he knocks Mark over the head with the Maltese Falcon, and obviously he's got some strength left. So, but this is where we get to the adventure portion of the movie, and Mark and Alice are running around doing all the errands, trying to figure out the secrets, and
we hear about the Freemasons from his little video. There's a video within the movie where he shows like stuff that is happening in exposition.
Yeah, and that's where we see Castellaneta again, and Kind again from the 1923.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and this was they did mention one thing that I thought was interesting in all his diatribes about how there was the inverted pyramid or the anti-pyramid that was like going into the earth to signify like the realm of the dead.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was actually kind of a cool idea. It's like, man, why wasn't that shown? Don't bring up that cool idea and they go, oh yeah, but we're not going to show or do anything about that.
Yeah. And then we go to like where where the demon can transform himself into a good-looking woman and seduce various gentlemen to follow him into the woods.
Yeah. And then not use it again.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like maybe he just has one-off power. So I get, wasn't it supposed to kind of be like some of the stuff was plague-like from like the Jewish mythology?
Yeah, they said he was part of what was causing it and things like that. They did mention that offhand.
And they had locusts at one point.
Yeah.
And then we get fast and loose with the
oh yeah. Story there. Well, that's right. I mean, we're finding good ideas in the movie, but that's also because there are a lot of ideas in the movie. They're just kind of throwing them out there and hoping some stick, which some do, but they don't follow up on the good ones.
Yeah.
So then we get Mark and Alice in the hotel room, and then this is where Adam Baldwin comes in after being possessed, and he keeps getting boils and marks on his skin and is being controlled by the demon. Mm-hmm. And then we get kind of the chase sequences.
Right. Yeah, and the character of the redneck weapons guy who was really crazy.
Yeah, that to me seemed kind of out of place, but that's one of those, kind of convenient movie plots where he knows this guy that happens to have, white phosphorus grenades and bazookas and all this stuff, from his 2-year tour in Iraq.
and kind of a little bit like the weapons guy in Tremors, just a bit.
Yeah.
Where it's like he kind of is prepared for the apocalypse and all, but he doesn't, get a chance to actually. I was hoping he was going to go with him to fight the guys off, but obviously that wasn't in the cards.
Yeah. I mean, and they probably, they used him because they needed him for the ending, but as far as the weapons, but why did they think that like these normal weapons would hurt this guy who turned into a sand cloud right in front of their face?
Right.
I think they should have been looking for a more mythological type sort of answer, that would have matched the story better than this, crazy redneck bunker guy.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of the thing that we talked about before. It's like where they should have zigged, they zagged. It's like, get the information. You're already there. Get the information from the old guy that runs the museum that maybe has a secret library of the books that shows how to defeat him.
Because they did it once before in 1923, so they could have said, okay, this is how they did it.
Yeah. It just it needed a streamline,
Yeah. And then, let's see. And then we get the dune buggy chase after Adam Baldwin catches up to them and he takes Alice hostage and they go on a race through the desert where, in dune buggies that I forget the weapons guy's name. I didn't write it down. Oh, Buford provides them.
Yeah, it's kind of like they paid for the rental of the dune buggies and by golly, they were going to use them for the entirety of the end of the film.
Yeah, it's a good. And then we get the cops coming back in at one point. I mean, the sheriffs are interspersed in between. They, at certain points in the movie, they get killed and by the demon and all that. I mean, all that could have been gone and not needed at all.
Well, it's like, why were the cops even shooting at the hero? I don't
know. Because I think I don't know. I don't know if they said they thought he was responsible or something. We never hear any of that.
One of the most original things in the entire film, well, maybe it's been done before, but where they get trapped by the main villain in this little room that had the hieroglyphs that they were trying to lure him into, had like the pictures, the paintings on the wall, and those actually like came alive and animated, but they were still like
2D. They were paper.
Yeah, like paper thin, and then he had to start fighting them. I thought that was a really cool idea.
I thought it was a nice idea. It did look a little too cartoony for their budget, and kind of didn't work for me. But I mean, I like the idea,
right?
But I don't know about the execution.
Exactly. You could almost say that about the whole film.
That's true. Well, yeah. So after the dune buggy chase, they go to back to Santa Monica, where they've been trying to recreate the set in the prison, and the creature won't go into the one square room that they've built. They're not very ahead in this construction, and it doesn't even have a roof on it. It's like, how do they plan to capture him in there? And then we get Nigel Barrington back, and he comes in to help. And he at one point even tries to go into hand-to-hand combat with the monster. And he gets thrown in a pile of trash cans and things. And I like at the end where they're like, well, he was dead. He's like, no, I'm not, right here.
So they didn't even check on his body or anything.
No, they just
he's in
assumed
trash.
he was dead. So, and then this is the scene where we get Mark face-to-face with the demon, and it's very bright out. And they show him, full size, full scale, and this is where, once again, I think they should have picked a taller actor, or gave him some sort of stilts or stuff. I mean, certain angles he looks menacing and imposing, but most of the time he's about the same size as Mark.
Yep. So,
and then to defeat the demon, obviously we're not concerned with spoilers with this movie,
right?
They throw the amulet, and there's the box of white phosphorus grenades, and he uses the bazooka, and apparently that's enough to turn the demon into glass.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you think about that?
Well, I mean, come on. Physics weren't an issue in the entire first part of the movie. And then he picks up a hammer and breaks it, so the spell is broken, and the enemy is defeated. And they can go home and have lots of babies.
Like I said, I don't know if I like the use of the conventional weapons to kill the mythological demon, but I mean, I don't know. It almost seems like they went too far in trying to make a harder. They made it more hard on themselves in finding a way to destroy it than they could have just worked in a mythological plot and had something go with that.
Right.
And of course, at the end, forgetting that her ex-husband, Adam Baldwin, just died, Mark and Alice get it on.
You know it. Because that's what the whole thing was about, really.
Yeah. I mean, his grandfather died, her ex-husband died, and they just moved on pretty quick. They had to make sure,
I mean, really, that's the best way to get rid of old relationships, is just for them to die and you can just move on, right? So, Rich, would you recommend people watch Sands of Oblivion?
Yes and no. I think it depends on if you find the basic premise interesting, if you like ancient, Egyptian lore, if you are a fan of so bad movies, they're movies that are so bad they're good. Though this doesn't quite reach that level, mm-hmm. I think for you to really enjoy it, if you have that mindset, you'll enjoy it. But if you're looking for something, mind-blowingly good, it's about expectations with this one, for me anyway.
Yeah, I would say if you're already a fan of the Sci-Fi Channel and the movies that they produce, like Sharknado and things like that, even though this isn't as ridiculous as that film, I think it's firmly in the average and typical version of that film. If you're expecting like a really cheesy 80s movie that is so horrendous you can laugh at all of the stuff because of how poorly it's done, it's not that. And obviously it's not a good version of this story. But it's passable. I mean, I got it really cheap because of going out of the sale business, and you got it on Amazon for what, like $4 or $5?
Yeah.
It's probably worth that. It's probably worth a rental price.
Well, and I would even say if you're fans of Firefly, you're going to get a lot of two of your favorite characters.
Sure.
So
yeah.
I mean, that alone might make it worth for some people to watch.
And it's one of those. And this is one of the reasons why Rich and I want to do Films from the Basement podcast. It's more enjoyable if you have someone else that and you watch it together and you talk about it, or you drink while you're watching it, or you make fun of stuff that's going on, or make little comments. That's the kind of thing that makes films enjoyable, is the stuff you add to it rather than just what the film gives you. So if you like those kind of things, it's at least worth watching for that.
Yes. Yeah, when something's really bad and it's hard for us to finish, we'll let you know.
Right. Yeah, we're not going to steer you wrong on that. And again, like we said, it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I think you're going to know whether or not you're going to enjoy it just by looking at the case and reading the back of the box.
And we could even we could see if there's a trailer, if you want to include that in the post, and then people can check that out as well, have an idea.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for the first episode of Films from the Basement.
Are we going to do we have a pick for next week they can watch ahead?
I picked Sands of Oblivion, so did you have something you wanted to watch, Rich?
Oh, you're going to put me on the spot here. Let me take a look in my archives. Why don't you tell us where they can find us?
Well, Rich and I both write articles for the nerdmentality.com. We also do a podcast of new movies that are coming out at the theater and new movies that are being released on physical media, and that's Just the Slips Podcast. You can find us on the Nerd Mentality with that, or you can find us on Twitter at Just the Slips Podcast. And eventually we are going to have an email specifically for Films from the Basement. But if you really want to contact us, you can just talk to us on those sites or the Twitter for right now.
And if we do get the email in the meantime, it'll probably be something like basement@thenerdmentality.com. We'll put that in the post as well. Right. If you want to send us suggestions, or if there's a movie that you've been wanting to watch but don't want to take the chance yourself, we'll do it for you.
Yeah. We watch bad movies, so you don't have to if you don't want to.
Okay, for my pick for next week, I'm going to choose a film that is a definitely unknown, definitely a lower budget film. I don't know if you even know this, Garrett, but it's from Bandit Motion Pictures. They're a little indie one, and they take the time. They do limited edition Blu-rays, and like this one is a run of 750 copies, but they're press discs. There's special features on it. The copies are even signed. They go all out. So I haven't watched it yet, but I've been meaning to. So I'll make Garrett watch it with me. But we'll go with Harvest Lake.
Okay.
So it's a mystery fantasy slasher kind of horror.
And when did it come out?
It came out in... I think it was actually 2015. It's not even listed on Blu-ray.com. It's a newer one.
So there we go. If you want to watch it.
Oh, 2016. So it was last year.
Okay. So if you want to watch it and then follow along with us as we talk about it, Harvest Lake. If not, that's still fine too. We're going to talk about it no matter what you do. All right. Well, that will be the end of the episode then. Is there anything else you want to say, Rich?
No, thanks for listening. If you have any suggestions, feel free to contact us and let us know how we do so we can make a better show for you.
And we love you.
That too.
All right.